Okay, so I see in the crowd a couple of past presidents. I know that they know exactly what I'm talking about when I say he helps keep us in line. So, all members, now to approval of the agenda. All members were notified of the meeting and the agenda through the e-news and by email notice within the 9-week notice period. The agenda and minutes and financial summary were made available to all members on OPPI's website and prior to the meeting. Additional paper copies are available for anyone who needs or wants them. So I'm going to deal firstly with the agenda, but I need to ask, is there any new business that is to be added to the agenda? So, seeing none, can I have someone move approval of the agenda as presented? Mary Lou Tanner, Bruce as the seconder, thank you very much, and I'll call the vote. All those in favor, please. Terrific. All those opposed? Fabulous. Thank you very much. So next we have the very technical approval of last year's AGM minutes from September 19th, 2013. Are there any changes or corrections to the minutes? Nothing? Thank you. Then the minutes are to be approved. Can I have a motion to approve the minutes? Scott, seconded by Mr. Keeble. And all those in favor? Opposed? Thank you. The minutes are approved. So now we have reports. We move on to the reports section of the agenda. There will be two reports, the Treasurer's report and my report. And we're going to have the reports, and then we'll move to the question period following that. So, Jeff, I invite you up to let us know how we're doing.
Paul's comments. Robert, thank you very much. You make my job so easy. Good afternoon. It's my pleasure to report OPPI's finances for the year 2013. I'd like to start by telling you that the 2013 financial statements were audited by Cryans LaRose LLP Chartered Accountants, and they found the financial statements accurately reflect the financial position of OPPI as of December 31st, 2013. Further, that the financial performance and cash flow for the year and was in accordance with generally accepted Canadian accounting practices. OPPI is a multi-million-dollar organization with revenues in 2013 of $2,023,396. 57% of this comes from membership fees, and the remaining 43% comes from non-membership fees, such as job ads, the conference or symposium, and revenue associated with courses. The industry average for a non-for-profit organization is a 60-40 split, with 60% coming from membership fees. I'm happy to report that 2013 was a good year from a financial perspective. For the year 2013, revenues exceeded expenses and our expectations, resulting in a surplus of $245,118. While I have the pleasure of reporting this news, it was the actions of my predecessors on council and OPPI staff and Robert which made this possible. Significant contributors to the surplus were an increase in membership fee revenues by about $39,000, an increase in job ad revenue by about $24,000, increased revenue associated with continuous professional learning, a reduced discipline, legal, and communication expenses to the tune of approximately $50,000, and the 2013 conference in London, where revenues exceeded expenses by almost $100,000. Now, much of this was not achieved until just before the conference because, typical with planners, we had more than 100 register in the last week. Expenses for OPPI in 2013 were $1,650,674. 61% of the expenses went directly to membership, including membership services, the district's policy and recognition. 39% went to administration and governance, which is generally in keeping with other professional organizations. Our current reserves are $674,232. slightly below the average for a non-for-profit organization. The industry average is 6 months of our operating budget, which for OPPI in the year 2013 would be approximately $800,000. It is for this reason that Council, in November 2013, set a strategic goal of bringing our reserves to the industry average. To do this, membership fee increases of 10% for 2 consecutive years was adopted. While 10% may sound out of step with the current financial times, I remind you it's only on the OPPI portion of the membership fee, which amounts to about $37 a year. Membership fees are expected to increase to normal rates for the year 2016. It was not that long ago, in fact it was 2009, when we ran a deficit. Council's goal is to set a solid foundation for the future, and in order to do this, we need adequate reserves. I'd also like to report that there's been an increase to the Scholarship Reserve Fund. Contributions to this fund come from the district's memberships and non-members, speakers, donations in lieu of gifts, golf tournaments, etc. 2013 was an exciting year for OPPI. It was the first year of CPL. It was the year Council approved the organizational structure to implement increased membership services and self-regulation, and it was the year we enjoyed a surplus of $245,118. With the number of members at this symposium and an increase in members, 2014 looks to be another successful year. I hope to be able to report good news when we meet again next year at the conference in Toronto. Thank you.
Thank you, Jeff. So, the President's report. I have to say that as I was getting ready for this meeting and this report, and I was reflecting on the highlights and the milestones of the last year, I had a little bit of difficulty choosing the topic, the general theme. This last year has been a bumper year for achievements and milestones. We've had the successful launch of the website, we've had the progress of our CPL program, we've had successes with our district leadership teams, we've advanced the professional regulation interests. The activities of our volunteers have continue to be incredible. Our financial stability is strong. Everywhere I look and everywhere I speak to people, I see examples of how our members, how you are collectively taking ownership of the profession. Or I thought I could talk to you about the more or less 3,000 emails I got in the last year all about CIP and OPPI, but I chose a topic that is actually, for me, was personally the #1 milestone for us as a group and as a profession. And it was a quiet little thing, but for me it stood out head and shoulders. It was an information report in the middle of an agenda on membership that went through a recent council agenda. That report marked this past year as being the year where the millennial cohort has now surpassed the baby boomer cohort. Doesn't sound like much, kind of sounds technical, but it represents what the shift that OPPI and OPPI Council and we as a profession in general have been expecting and have been planning for the last decade. Over the next decade, we're projecting to lose over 800 full members to retirement. For any association, that's a real fiscal challenge. For a profession, that's potentially a crippling challenge. This hasn't snuck up on us as new news. We have anticipated this and we have said we need to keep the profession strong and vibrant going into the next generation. In that regard, Council has been investing in growth. It's been investing in being relevant to a changing profession, And it's been investing in a group of members that we know will be changing. And we're looking to reinforce their platform, not just for today, but for the next 25 years. And I've noted a couple of highlights that result from those investments. We've broadened and provided more accessible volunteer opportunities for members. We still have roughly 250 members that regularly volunteer, and that's the backbone of our success, and it's the envy of the industry. I've spoken to other professions. They have nothing like what we have in terms of enthusiasm and in terms of volunteer commitment. We're looking for opportunities to increase that volunteer, to reduce the amount of volunteer time, but to spread out and increase the volunteerism so that more people can get involved. I was quite impressed by a recent call to the members to look for mentor volunteers, and we had in fairly short order 60 people identify themselves for that, and that's a fairly substantial commitment. I'm looking to that area to grow, but it's reflective of what's happening with volunteers at large. The district leadership team, we've had just a resounding success over the last year. We've had a number of programs that have been sold out quickly, that have been attended fulsomely, all across the province. And just yesterday, we had a meeting of the district team leadership, and we looked at the program for 2015, and there's no stopping. The topics, the range of topics, the number of events is going to be very exciting. We have a comprehensive communication strategy. We have a learning strategy guide. We've got updated and flexible website. We're trying to put the tools in place for our members to deliver their messages and to promote public education on planning issues to members, to partners, and to key stakeholders. Our planning issue strategy groups, calls to action, continue to attract attention and focus to our sustainable healthy communities policies. The response from our millennials and Gen Xers has been overwhelmingly supportive for the CPL program. We had over 40% of you last year in the transition year log enough that it went forward into this year. We've got 3/4 of you today, as I think is a week or two ago, that are already logged on and working towards completing 2014. We're involving the next generation at an early stage, students and young professionals, through programs, outreach, and participation. And the response has been dynamic. At last week's joint outreach committee and student liaison committee, we had some very exciting visions and expectations for the future. The young professionals in our profession are very engaged. We can be proud of that, and we can look forward to that. Council continues to move forward in updating our 1994 RPP legislation on professional self-regulation. My undertaking to you at last year's conference was to ensure that whatever the outcome of this initiative, OPPI professionals would remain leaders in this area, and as we were in 1994 when we introduced the RPP, which has now become, for 97% of the professionals across the country, the designation, or something equivalent to that, is the designation that they use and they pursue. So we were leaders in that. We're looking to continue to position our members to be leaders in that regard. We've retained a government relations consultant to assist us on that and to move forward. I'm often asked, why do we do this? And I have to say, for me, it's not about self-interest. Self-regulation is not about self-interest. It's much more about encouraging the province and the public to recognize and support the importance of planning and the planning profession in the same way as we recognized it ourselves through our private bill in 1994. We continue to monitor recent legislative updates and efforts by partner provinces and by those of other professions in Ontario as well. Earlier today we had a symposium session on enhanced self-regulation, and again it was very well attended, good questions which provided us with some very good feedback. Our expectation is that we will have more such consultations in the forthcoming months as we focus on what is in the best interest of the profession and the public moving forward in this area. OPPI's task is to ensure planning professionals are ready for the challenges ahead, ensuring that we remain current with contemporary practice and with the changing environment ahead of us, work environment, ensuring that we have the skills, knowledge, and commitment, ensuring we can offer meaningful leadership province-wide in all spheres of practice. At last year's OPPI conference, I reflected on the fact that standing still as a profession is not an option. As we transition towards the next 2 decades of growth and the change in our profession, we are looking to ensure that our professionals are prepared, that they have the skills, they have the leadership, and they have the commitments to the public interest to carry that objective forward. So we're blessed with many engaged planners, members. We have active leaders on council. We have just a first-rate professional staff. And I have to say, on reflection to you at this AGM, professional planners in Ontario are not standing still, and the future looks very exciting. I do have one other thing I wanted to speak to you about, and I know this is going to go over my 5-minute time, and Mary Ann's not going to be happy about that. But, and it's not directly an OPPI AGM matter, but there is a current topic that I wanted to briefly reflect on for you. On the national CIP front, with July's 94% support of CIP's national articles of continuance, CIP Council is now in the midst of canvassing input on its realignment structure so as to have a new CIP bylaw ready for a membership vote in early 2015. There's now a ticking clock from the time of the articles of continuance to when they have to provide the new bylaw. So they're out there with the comments, and I think that's fabulous. And from what I've been hearing back from different sources and what I've been reading on the websites, what I've heard, it looks like CIP Council will indeed have a very broad spectrum of input to consider. Not surprising from a group like us. It's ranging from very supportive to, gee, I think we really ought to stay with the status quo, to, you know, I think we really need to go back to the way we used to be, to, you know, it hasn't gone far enough. So, you know, I don't envy CIP Council. Andrea and Michael here representing them. They will have some difficult governance decisions to make about the future for CIP. And in that regard, I wanted to take this opportunity to encourage all OPPI members to participate in that input. Get your comments to CIP Council. They need the benefit of everybody's comments. It's a difficult decision to make. CIP has a member feedback section on the website. Log on, make your comments, short, sweet, long, whatever. If you want, you can provide them through Andrea or Michael directly. If you want, you can send them to me. I'll send them to her. But my principle is get involved. This is about what is going to be the best governance model, the best national governance model for the professionals' national interests serving the next 25 years. So that's a very important input. Having said that, I also wanted to tell you that and to assure you that whatever the outcome of this CIP realignment will be, it will not affect your RPP interests in Ontario. Membership standards are now and will continue to be managed through our partnerships between the participating provinces. So we used to have references to affiliates. We now call them provincial territorial institutes and associations, I call them provincial institutes, and through the PSB and the PSC. So membership standards have now been dealt with. Job portability has been taken care of through federal legislation, so we no longer need an umbrella to ensure that. What we do need to ensure is that there are equal standards and qualifications no matter where you might practice. Professional regulation is and will continue to be secured at the provincial level, and membership in OPPI and use of the RPP designation is not contingent on an MCIP membership, and that will continue forward. That won't change. Membership in CIP is, however, contingent on being a qualified provincial member. None of that's going to change. What remains the challenge for CIP Council is what is the restructured national and international interest to be? What's that CIP role to be? And so that it doesn't compete with the provinces, but that it provides the profession with a strong national voice. For me, what resonated for me is I had my exposure on CIP Council and I was listening to the other provinces. What I was hearing is that remaining 3% of the membership, the 3% who don't have access to an RPP today or an equivalent today, they're saying they really need help from a national organization. They need help to advocate the profession on a national basis and to take that forward. The other thing that has impressed me with CIP Council's determination to look at a new governance model is that governance model may now finally, and it's a long-awaited finally, facilitate the full participation of all provinces, including our Quebec colleagues. So whatever the issues were in the past, this direction seems to be attractive, and it looks like we can have a national organization that will include all of the provinces. So inform yourselves, participate through CIP's member feedback, take advantage of Michael and Andrea taking comments. Get your comments and questions out to them. Just a final note, 2011 we celebrated 25 years as an Ontario Institute. And in 2017 we're going to be celebrating 100 years of comprehensive land use planning legislation in Ontario. Ontario was a leader in bringing in and implementing planning legislation. 2019, we're going to be celebrating the 100th anniversary of a planning organization, CIP, national organization. And in 2019, we're going to also be celebrating the 25th anniversary of RPP in Ontario. First one to introduce that. It is indeed a great time to be a planner. It's a very exciting time to be your president. And professional planners in Ontario, I will repeat, are most certainly not standing still. Sorry, more than 5 minutes. So I have questions of both or either reports. Do I have questions on the Treasurer's report or on my report? You're all still trying to wipe out your Facebook accounts, aren't you, from this morning? Okay. No questions. Okay, this is a EGM without the benefit of breakfast is definitely a success. So, thank you, and I would now need some motions on an appointment of an auditor. So. The motion is that the firm of Creans LaRose Chartered Accountants be appointed as the auditor to audit OPPI's financial records for the fiscal year ending 2014. Do I have a mover for that? Marilyn. Do I have a seconder? George, thank you. Lots of participants. Thank you very much. All those in favor, please show your card. Thank you. All opposed? You can let Cairns LaRose know that nobody opposed. Thank you very much. So then we have an approval of actions motion, and the motion reads that the membership of the Institute approve the actions of the Council taken during 2013 and 2014. Do I have a oh.
I wanted to get myself on a record.
The accountant's not going to be happy, you know. So I'll tell you what, I need a motion to approve the actions. Do I have a mover for that? Mr. Cronus, thank you very much. Do I have a seconder for that? Bruce again, thank you very much. All those in favor? Opposed? Thank you. Okay, note on file, watch Paul Cronus. So, we had no business, no new business, sorry, no business being there, no new business, so we'll now move on to the election results and introduce the 2014 and 2015 Council. First, though, I'd like to acknowledge and thank OPPI's Governance and Nominating Committee that conducts a very thorough and thoughtful process of nominating members. The process that they use strives to put forward leaders that are well positioned to fulfill their role as a director in OPPI Council. That's an understatement. The work that they do is phenomenal. We have charged the committee with searching out competencies and searching out a balance of competencies, not just on council, but on all of our committees. And they do just a fabulous job. And I want to recognize them, Jason Farragon, Diana Rusnoff, Andrea, Daryl Bird, Don McConnell, and Rob Armstrong. So I want to thank them for their work and efforts. And I forgot Bill, who chairs it. It wouldn't work without you. Sorry, Bill. Thank you very much for your work. It's still one of the dual hats that. So, for the 2014-2015 Council, we required 5 directors. 3 of those were returning to Council, and they've agreed to return. And so we have, for the second year of their 2-year term, and we have 2 new incoming directors. So the 5 that we now have, Daryl Bird is returning. Daryl, actually, if I could ask you to stand to identify yourself. Thank you. Scott Toussaint. No, actually, sorry, I meant you have to stay standing. It's kind of like, you know, hazing. Scott Toussaint. Bob Forehand. Bob, thank you. And we have 2 new directors to welcome, and they are Kathy Suggett and Tracy L. So I want to, don't sit down. I want to thank you for your volunteer time in advance. I know some of you know what you're getting into. But thank you for your volunteer time. So for the rest of the 2014-15 Council, as I call your name, if you just sort of rise. Scott, you've got to keep standing. It's a tiresome job, I know. So I'm back for another year. Andrea, President-elect. We have Jason Farragon, Bill Jansen, Jeff Lewinson, and we do have Cheryl Horobin, and Cheryl, as I noted earlier, sends her regrets. She's not able to be with us today. So this is your 2014-2015 Council. Thank you. Now, so a couple of acknowledgements. This is the one that I always enjoy because it recognizes our volunteers who are the core of our success. I'd like to acknowledge again our volunteer wall. It has something like 250 names. Their countless hours and commitment are greatly appreciated and make us what we are today. If you'd like a close-up view, you can find it in the annual report and find it on site. Please find a name you recognize, someone that works with you in the office, and go and thank them. We are very appreciative of their work. There are many ways for members to get involved, and so this is a bit of a recruitment now for those of you who haven't become involved yet. You can become involved locally in your district, attend an event, help to organize a learning session. You can become a mentor or a sponsor. That's going to be a very large component of our requirement in the forthcoming years. You can become an exam marker or an assessor. You can become a jury duty for scholarships and awards. I have to say that's one of the things I did at one point. I love that work. That's very rewarding, what you get to see in terms of what's happening out there. A lot of fun. You can help organize an event locally for World Town Planning Day, and you can write an article for the Ontario Planning Journal. And if you have an idea of what you might be interested in volunteering that we haven't identified, let us know. If you have an interest, let us know. So let's show our appreciation for the 2014 volunteers with a round of applause. We also have recognition of 25-year full members. 3 years ago at OPPI's 25th anniversary, we created a recognition program for full members who have been members of the Institute for 25 years. This recognition program continues, and I'm pleased to announce that this year we had a total of 18 full members who have celebrated that milestone. As a 25-year full member, each of them has already received a certificate of recognition. And for those who could join us today, I'm going to ask that they join us on stage for a little photo. You're going to be able to recognize them not only on the stage, but with the ribbon that is on their label. So with us today are Paul Cronus, the troublemaker. Paul, if you would come up. Sandy Hay. Kenneth Bedford. And Ian Graham. So I learned well from past President Sue Cumming, who is not here yet, embarrassment is a tool. It's a weapon. So we do have two outgoing counselors that we would like to say goodbye to and also thank you for their work. First is Diana, and again, Diana sends her regrets. Unfortunately, couldn't be here with us today. I just wanted to make a couple of comments. Wanted to celebrate Diana's contribution on councils. Diana came from that era where councillors were asked to wear sort of two hats. They had to be involved in council, and they also had to be involved in a committee. So it was double duty. And it was Mary Lou Tanner's mission in life to ensure that we became humane and only asked our volunteers to do one thing at a time. But Diana carried a double role. She was a director on council, and she was also the director of our recognition committee. She carried that double duty role and provided just a very clear balance of competencies on council. Her background, her expertise, her voice was contributed to many of our discussions and to our decisions. Her voice and energy are appreciated. They're going to be missed, but they were most certainly needed and just happily available to us during those years that we were going through this transition. So I will contact Diana later and speak to her, and we have just a small token to provide to her, but if you could just join me in thanking Diana. Next is Charles Langtree, and Charles, I'm going to ask you to come forward. Embarrassment is a weapon. I just have a few words to say, and then I'll come and join you over there. Charles, I watched him down here as I was talking about Diana, and he's going, 2 hats, big deal. Charles is one of these people who has carried an incredible load in all of his volunteer times. He's carried, I think you're carrying 3 for us, at least, for OPPI right now. 3 roles, and I think there's 4 hats involved if you include the chairmanship of, and then that, I have no idea what else you do for OALA, but. So Charles started in the mid-90s on membership and as an examiner. He has worked on council. He was really very much, and he was involved in membership in its various incarnations, the committee. He was also involved in the National Membership Committee, and his tenure was during this time of PFF. So all of this transition, all of these discussions that we had going across the country and in Ontario, Charles was very much an integral part of. It was a time when we needed a cool head. It was a time when we needed some institutional knowledge. It was a time when we needed someone who could work with a number of different people, and Charles brought that to his volunteerism. He is, I think, today still in terms of the 4 hats I was speaking of. He had the council director. You also had the membership. You had PSC as a PSC rep, and then also as a PSC chair. I think it's going to be very difficult for us to find a combination of those skills to replace, but happily through Mary Lou's efforts, we're not going to ask anyone else to do that again. But Charles, for having done it on our behalf, we are very thankful and very grateful. Okay, so we've come to the part of the agenda that everybody loves, adjournment. So can I have a motion to adjourn? Nobody wants to do that. Maureen, thank you very much. So before you head off, as we close, there's just 2 comments for you. I invite you all to come to our AGM and our conference next year. On October 7th, that will be our AGM, and it's going to be held at the Allstream Centre at Exhibition Place in Toronto, and the conference itself will be from October 6th to October 8th. From what I've seen, the preliminary agenda and preliminary sessions, it's going to be a very exciting conference, some very exciting topics. I'm not sure if we'll be able to top this year, but I think we're working towards that. The other thing I just wanted to comment on as well, please stick around, stay. The AGM is over, but we now move on to awards and scholarships, and we really like to show appreciation for the the people receiving awards and for the scholarships. So on behalf of council, thank you very much. So, Andrea is going to be our MC for the awards and scholarships, and apparently I'm going to be the photo person.